Okay, so this is a roundhouse kick biomechanics analysis. He starts in a fighting stance with his left foot forward and with his elbows in slight flexion using his brachialis and biceps brachialis. His right hip is in slight lateral rotation. He begins stepping his left foot forward, abducting the left foot through the transverse plane primarily at the subtalar and distal joints. This causes his hips to go through left lateral rotation using the gluteus maximus and the deep rotators. As the left leg becomes a weight-bearing leg, the left foot goes into plantar flexion using the primary muscles such as the gastrocnemius muscle, soleus muscle, as well as the deep muscles including the flexor hallucis longus and the flexor digitorum longus. The right side of the pelvis begins to go into forward rotation, as well as the pelvis going into left lateral rotation, where the right side moves up and the left side moves down. The right leg becomes non-weight bearing, and the right hip is placed in flexion, engaging the rectus femoris, iliopsoas, pectineus muscles, tensor fasciae lata, and the sartorius, and abduction through the gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. As the hip abducts, the head of the femur, which is a convex joint surface, begins to glide downward. The right knee is placed in flexion through the gastrocnemius popliteus and biceps femoris to add more power to the kick. The femur rolls posteriorly and glides anteriorly on the tibia during flexion. Now as the leg comes up, the foot goes through plantar flexion using the superficial muscle group such as the soleus and the gastrocnemius through the sagittal plane around the frontal axis. Both arms are placed in extension using the triceps and the shoulder in protraction through the kick, gaining momentum as well as protecting against a punch, gauging distance of his opponent. The trunk laterally bends to the left using the quadratus laborum, erector spinae, internal oblique, external oblique, and the intertransversi. Now at the end of the kick, the knee goes through full extension using the rectus femoris, vastus medialis, vastus intermedialis, and vastus lateralis until he makes contact with the other guy's head, using an angular motion. The femur rolls anteriorly and glides posteriorly on the tibia. His neck is placed in right rotation using the splenus capitis and the splenus cervicis, as well as the sternocleidomastoid and the transversospinalis on the opposite side, which occurs on the transverse plane around a vertical axis to keep his eyes on his opponent. Now as he begins to return to position, the arms begin to return to slight flexion and the right hip begins to extend and adducts, causing the head of the femur to glide upward back into normal position. The right knee stays extended, as well as the right leg begins to bear weight again, returning to a fighter stance, ready to engage his opponent again. And that is my analysis on a roundhouse kick.